We talk about the new Lexus UX here at the track, the imminent arrival of Hurricane Florence, and what some considerations for your car might be in a natural disaster. And we take your questions next on Talking Cars. Hi, and welcome to the show. I'm Jennifer Stockberger.
I'm Mike Quincy.
And I'm Keith Barry.
So as we're taping this week, Hurricane Florence is literally bearing down on the East Coast. There's going to be a number of people affected, and of course there's worry about your family, about your home, but there may actually be concerns about your car. And so each of us has come up with some kind of tips on what to do as the storm arrives or when you're leaving. Mike, we'll start with you.
Well, certainly some of the most obvious things that you'd think of is just make sure you have gas in your car. Right. I mean, as people are evacuating, I imagine that the lines at gas stations are going to be really long.
Right,
but,
so it may not be easy to get it.
Hang in there and make sure you're all filled up. And I think above all, be patient. I mean, be patient with the gas lines. Be patient with the traffic that you're inevitably going to see on the highway, and be prepared with stuff in your car like snacks,
right?
Water.
You may be in traffic for a long time.
I mean,
right?
The medications that you're taking. And I also thought we had our meeting and talked about this. I thought about if you have babies, make sure you have extra diapers,
right?
Formula, stuff like that.
Things you might not have thought.
The real essentials. And there's also some suggestions that you should along with your phone chargers, obviously, bring some important paperwork. Bring documents like your insurance policies.
If you've got that little kind of the fireproof box sitting somewhere in your house, just grab it and bring it with you.
Right. Probably need to bring it. And this is a really serious storm. I mean, they're talking about winds maybe up to about 150 miles an hour. Right. My wife and I recently went to St. Martin, which got devastated by a hurricane just about a year ago. And what we saw was where there once were houses are now concrete slabs. Yeah, so take this evacuation very seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because there are, you want to protect your car. And we're going to talk about that as well because your car might be the most expensive thing you own or your second most expensive thing you own.
Your home, right?
Yeah, but your car can actually help you, and it's not just about getting away. And please, if the authorities tell you to evacuate, follow what they say, do it. But the car actually, if you have a newer car, sometimes the car can have some systems that help you. So if your phone loses reception, the car might have something like OnStar. Or it might even have a built-in cell phone connection. And a lot of affordable modern cars have these features. You may not have activated them. Now might be a good time to do so because you might be able to get with a different antenna that's built into the car, you might be able to get that connection to life-saving services. Letting someone know, help, I'm stuck somewhere and there's water coming up, and they'll be able to pinpoint your location and get in touch with emergency services. But speaking of that, water, driving, the evacuation is going to be tough. But if you're somewhere where the weather gets bad, it's going to get really bad, right?
Yeah, my thoughts were around the volume of water. I mean, I've seen 15 inches of rain coming. So a couple things. One is obviously hydroplaning, and that's probably the least of the worries. The only really good way to combat that is to slow down.
Sure.
Every tire, I think we've said, will hydroplane at some point. But the other was standing, moving water. Don't attempt to go through it. You were talking about times in Texas where, particularly if it's moving, don't attempt to ford through some standing water without knowing how deep that is.
Yeah, it might not look like much.
Right. Or you have
a
really big truck and you think, I can just drive through this water flowing across the road in my F-250. Guess what? That water can pick up your truck and then you're downriver. Yeah,
just search for that kind of. There are videos online of cars getting swept away, and it can scare anything out of you when you take a look at just how no match for a car.
Right. Yeah. We also talked a little bit about insurance. Make sure your car is covered insurance-wise. That might be worth just a check-in.
Yeah, it can be hard to actually change things in the days leading up to a hurricane.
Oh,
by the way, I need some flood insurance.
But that may determine where you park your car. Determines how the insurance is covered. It may be different if you park it on a street versus a garage versus taking it with you. So keep that in mind.
Make sure you're covered wherever you're going to be. Yeah. You brought up a point, and you just said it. Flood insurance about after the storm.
Right.
Flood damaged cars, which we've talked about before. After Katrina, after Harvey, we've talked about this. So
you might get some some great deal on a used car. It's barely used, and you're wondering, why is this so cheap? The truth is that depending on what state you live in, your insurance company is going to can take a flood damaged car and say it's a total loss. Once the car is totaled, it might get a salvage title. It might get a rebuilt title. It might also get a flood title, but it depends from state to state. And this is the weird thing. In some states, this warning is shown as a title, in the title as an obscure letter or a number, which most people wouldn't know.
Some code.
And sometimes you think, well, I can't be a great mechanic and know how to inspect this car. What do I do? You actually, you just use your basic senses. Use your nose, for example.
Mildew.
If you're looking at a used car that you think might have been in a flood, get your nose right down into the carpet and take a big whiff. If it smells kind of musty, moldy, that's a bad sign. If it's a relatively new car and the carpets have been replaced, that's a bad sign. Also, one of the things that is really important, go into the trunk, lift up the mat underneath. That's a great place for mud and other stuff to accumulate, especially
may not have been cleaned up.
in the tire well, for example. That's another thing. So don't think that just because you're not a mechanic that you can't inspect one of these cars.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. So we wish everybody the best, obviously, and consumerreports.org has a lot of information outside of automotive. How to protect your home, generators, what to do in power outages, a lot. So if you're in that area, we encourage you to take a look at that. Yeah. So little bit lighter note, is new at the track. We've had the opportunity to drive the new Lexus UX. So this is a car we did rent from Lexus. This is Lexus, just to kind of set things up, their entry into the luxury compact SUV market. They're talking $32,000 to $40,000 price tag. And they've kind of slated it as the gateway. We've talked about the BMW X2 and other gateways to luxury brands. All-wheel drive is optional, unlike the CHR and the Prius, which it's related to. 168 horsepower, 2-liter for direct shift CVT, which they're saying is designed to make for smoother accelerations, be more like a conventional transmission. So easily recognizable as a Lexus with its kind of funky...
For some people, you just lost them right there. CVT, like, I'll forget it.
Well, CVT and the funky grille. I mean, some people don't care for it. Likely to be super reliable. Lexus's brands have been super reliable. We all had a chance to get in it. Keith, your impressions?
So this car was really interesting to me because when Lexus first announced it, their marketing department basically just kind of described me as the ideal buyer for this thing. So an extremely handsome, very smart, charismatic gentleman.
I wasn't sure where he was.
A lot of friends. No, but it really describes it as someone who might have never owned a luxury car before, who probably with a good lease deal would be able to get into a Lexus for the first time, and a younger buyer buying maybe the first new car after getting the
good job.
First good job, working with these folks. Not that young. But young for a luxury car buyer.
Right.
So I got in this car, and the first thing I noticed was, it's the joke that we've all been making, and I'm going to steal. Is UX stands for user experience,
right?
And this one's is not great. It has CarPlay, which is great. It doesn't have Android Auto, but Toyota and Lexus are finally getting CarPlay. But once you get into this kind of snug interior, you plug in your phone, CarPlay comes on, but there's this touch pad that it uses that Lexus is really going all in on. And picture, like using a laptop's touchpad, but picture that to control a screen it's in the middle of the dashboard, and you're driving along and you're on bumps, and you're trying to, I called my doctor when I was trying to change the podcast I was listening to. No, it wasn't that emotionally disturbing to me. But I accidentally, I selected the wrong thing and I clicked it, and I couldn't figure out how to
uncall your doctor.
Yeah, I could see what I needed to do, but my hand didn't have the dexterity.
It's really too bad.
Sensitive.
When you say Lexus is kind of all in this touchpad, but as we know, the cars are developed way in the future. You really have to plan ahead for this. So they obviously spent the money to develop this. We've experienced it in the RX, which we didn't like.
We didn't like it in that either.
And maybe someone in Lexus said, well, you know, we kind of spent a lot of money on this, so we got to put it on other stuff, and it's really too bad because the controls, this control is not done well in Consumer Reports, usability.
Now, driving the car itself, I found the steering to be a little kind of gummy feeling.
That was
it just felt a little mushy, and I also noticed that the trunk space, and I think we all noticed this.
Right, that was my biggest thing. And you talked about, you know, the U in user experience, maybe the U in utility. I was shocked because I had just a few bags of groceries, and I opened that hatch, and I went, when I tell you, I barely fit 4 bags of groceries in the back. The deck of that cargo area is very high, so it's super small. We do our, you know, MERP box. It's going to be very, very tiny.
Yeah, when we test that, I'm very curious.
So, yeah.
And what Keith said about the steering, I totally agree with it. I took it out.
So not sporty.
I took it out on the track, and really, it gave up its handling limits really, really early.
Yeah.
And as we were talking about this car in our pre-podcast meeting, I was thinking, you know, what else could you get for you know, $30,000 to $40,000? And honestly, I came up with a Volkswagen Golf All-Track.
Yeah.
I think that would be a nicer vehicle
for a lot lot less money.
Or a loaded Subaru Outback.
Right.
Again,
right.
utility,
you can go way
drive.
Up in a lesser.
You're definitely giving up some fuel economy. But even if you were going to go on the far side of utility and reliability, I'd even get a 4Runner before I got this one.
Now, what about the X2? BMW. It's going to cost a little bit more, but it might be worth a step up.
Yeah. I thought that I was always short on headroom in that. And I'm not a tall guy, but it seemed like every time I got in and out of the X2, I was whacking my head.
Yep.
Which explains a lot, I know.
Right. So, of course, we will be buying our own, and we'll have a full test in the future, but those are first impressions for sure of the Lexus UX. So we're going to move on to your questions. As always, keep them coming. We actually have 3 video questions this week. TalkingCars@iCloud.com. Keep them coming. We love them. So
real good production values on this week's videos.
Sure.
Yes,
they look
actually,
like we're gonna get rid of our 3 guys here.
I was gonna say I think the production guys here, their
in.
job's in trouble.
So the first one is Ron from Las Vegas. Take a look.
We just purchased a new Honda CR-V, and I was curious about break-in procedures. The owner's manual says to be easy on the throttle for 600 miles and easy on the brakes for 200. But I was wondering if you guys had any special tips. This is the first new car I've had, and I want to make sure that I break it in right. Thank you so much.
So Ron, very common question about break-in. And I certainly talked to our mechanic, but did you have any thoughts?
Well, I talked to the same mechanic, actually. He said,
we have one.
I already talked to Jen about this, but really, what he said was it's not a really big deal about breaking in a new car. Right. It's not like cars of old, maybe, that you had to be more gentle with it.
And all
John basically said, drive the car as you normally would drive it, and really don't worry about it that much. I remember buying a new car, my first new car in the 80s, and the salesperson said, don't use cruise control right away. In other words, vary your speed.
Yeah.
And
you don't want anything to take a set.
Yeah, exactly. I really don't think it's the case. Now, it is a very good question, but the basic advice is follow what's in your owner's manual.
Right. Yep.
So,
and it's interesting. We do a break-in on the cars we test, but we do it because we're comparing performance. We're not doing it to protect it from damage in the future or some reliability issue. We want the suspensions to settle. Because we're comparing ride comfort to ride comfort. We want brakes to be set, and because we're comparing braking distances, our break-in is about equalizing performance, not about protecting the car
and also,
future damage.
I always tell people that it's to make sure that the car is functioning as the manufacturer designed it.
Right, correct.
So we drive it for a long time to make sure everything is working as it should.
Right. But it also is an opportunity to learn about the car. And where today's cars are kind of a little complex, you don't want to be trying to figure out what all the systems are while you're also testing out the 0 to 60. Yeah.
So Ron, good job reading the owner's manual. Follow that. Second video is from Joel in Michigan.
I wanted to know if you've ever tested the Miata behind me. It's a 2016, to see if there's any performance difference when you use unleaded gas versus the recommended premium. It says in the manual you can use regular unleaded, and I was curious if there was any difference in performance between the two octanes. Thank you.
So, actually, another popular question. So, to answer Joel's question, we've done this work, not specific to his Miata or that year of the Miata, but we've certainly done the work. And what we found is that neither fuel economy or performance was affected in vehicles where premium fuel was recommended.
Right.
When we ran them with regular fuel, both were fine. In our results, we also didn't experience any pinging, which is some of what the manufacturers have said that why they had suggested or recommended the increased octane.
But the operative word is recommended versus required.
Right, and I have that here. Note that some vehicles require premium. We don't want you to make that
in your
change.
owner's manual.
Right, in the secret owner's manual.
Well, also in the fuel filler lid also will say premium required, and in those cases we always put in premium.
And we test when they're required that way. So when they're recommended, we often test with regular if it's allowed. And when we inquired of manufacturers as to why the difference, when we did some of this work, they were saying it's more about performance, about the increased octane and getting better performance, but not damaging your car. And you did some work on pricing, Keith.
Yeah,
so
well, actually, I'll give credit where it's due. You did the work on pricing.
As of today, because it changes every day.
If the national average is $3.39 a gallon, according to AAA, and versus for premium versus $2.84 a gallon for regular, Miata with its 12-gallon tank, that's 55-cent difference. That's every time $6 in your pocket. Why don't you treat yourself and not your car?
There you go, Joel. You can get a coffee or a breakfast sandwich or something like that. So one more video question. This is Matt from Florida.
I'm 18. I'm looking for used cars. I like the Nissan Pathfinder 2001 to 2004. I like the 2009 Mazda 3. I really like that one. And Toyota Corolla from 2010. I also like the Toyota Camry in that same range of years. Just wanted to get your thoughts on a couple of those cars.
Okay, so this is my most favorite type of question because we can play Jennifer's game of what did you pick?
What did you pick?
So
everyone
again,
wins.
Everyone wins. Matt especially wins because maybe we even narrow his or maybe we even agree. But we did not talk about it prior to the broadcast. So, Mike.
My suggestion is a 2013 to 2016 Hyundai Elantra. And the reason I went with this is when Hyundais and Kias, for that matter, are sold new, we usually find you get a lot of car for your money. So even as a used car, I would go with the Elantra. Decent reliability, stability control became standard in 2011. So that's kind of the minimum cutoff where I would go with that because we really are big fans of stability control.
Yeah, you got to watch out for that because you're shopping in an era where some cars have it, some cars don't. And that makes a big difference.
And an era and a price range where some cars have it and don't. Yes.
And if you wanted something a teeny bit more, a little sportier and perhaps better on gas, I would go for the Honda Fit. Same thing. Stability was standard starting in 2011. So Honda Fit or Hyundai Elantra.
Okay, Keith.
Yeah, I like the Fit because it its name is what it does. It's just really well designed, and you're going to be able to put a lot of stuff in it. One would say that things may fit. Sorry. So I like your choices. I mean, we also talked about a couple of Toyotas, the 2010 Corolla. Now it's going to be probably on the more reliable side, but it also means you're going to have to, there's that expectation. There's that with used cars, there is a bit of a Toyota premium that people think, I've got to get a Toyota and maybe overlook some great cars like, like the Hyundais and Kias.
Because the Elantra probably doesn't have the reputation for long-term reliability like the Corolla has, although Consumer Reports data says, suggests otherwise.
Exactly. But, Toyota's been on the scene for longer. So you have that sort of, that name recognition for people who might not, be as savvy. And also the Mazda 3, that's great. So the hatch gives you room for that bike. If you get a 2009, again, make sure you watch out for ESC. So, wasn't that... That was standard in 2011?
Oh, yeah, standard
Yes.
in 11. 09, you could get it. So again,
that's like almost a needle in a haystack. I mean, finding a 2009, with stability.
And then asking the dealer, does it have it? It'll never show up on that build sheet. So
Right. So Matt had given us a few that he was considering. Matt, I would stay away from the older Pathfinder. ESC was not standard till 05. Reliability is not as strong as the others. Keith talked about the Toyota's Corolla Camry. Yes, more reliable, but you're going to pay more for that. I would also go with the Mazda 3 on Matt's list. He's riding his bike. Maybe you could even get your bike in the Mazda 3 because it is a hatch.
Because we have to talk about bikes whenever we're doing Talking Cars.
Yes.
But almost every Mazda 3 of that era that I see has a bike rack on the roof.
Right.
It's just part of it. Should come with the car, and it looks good too.
Right.
It gives
it's a cool car.
It's an image. It's kind of a cool thing. I like it.
Right, and 11, you should still be able to find an 11 for around $10,000. Might take some hunting. And the only one I did throw in there, keeping with the Toyota vein, was the RAV4. We talked about it last week for a young driver. Bike, SUV like the Pathfinder, 2009 era, excellent reliability as an alternate. So, Matt, there you go. Hopefully we didn't complicate things even more and add to your list. So we have one more question. Let me read. Conventional wisdom used to be that you shouldn't purchase a new model in its first year as it would take a year to work out the bugs. Generally speaking, is this still the case, or are manufacturers able to make improvements show up faster? So this is a good question and couldn't have been more timely. Keith, you've been following the Volkswagen Atlas.
Yeah,
as
which
an
is
example, right?
It's a 2018 and it has 7 recalls, which is a lot. Now it's good that they're catching these things, but it just shows that in a new car, and this is an all new car.
Right.
This isn't an update. This is a brand new car that sometimes things can go wrong. So the most recent one was the air conditioner drain tube was installed wrong on a few cars and it got all twisted, so it drained in the wrong place. So instead of leaving a puddle of water under your car, it leaked all over the airbag controller, which is really bad.
That's not good.
And dangerous.
Yeah, so that's not good. There have been other issues with, even little things like installing the mounts for the car seats. Where they put too much plastic on the outside of it, so people couldn't mount on the car seats, which is just a thing that you kind of learn once you've got a plant up and running and a production line up and running. So yeah, there are some, it depends on the car. And again, I would say a brand new car, like the most recent Alfa Romeos, a brand new brand in the United States, that's going to be different than, the first year of the 2019 Jetta.
Right. Right. So I think you've touched on two things. One, a brand new model may be worse than a redesign of a model. And I also think there's something to be said about brand. Some brands, which are traditionally better in reliability, be it Toyota or Subaru or something, may be better in their first year than a brand like Volkswagen's, which might have been a little more spotty in terms of reliability.
Just about every year, Volkswagen is on the bubble, right? Because the Volkswagens generally do well in our testing. They have good performance, but reliability is always one of those things with the Volkswagen where you're like, I'm not quite sure. It might be good, it might not be good.
So look at the Audi Q5, which is from the Volkswagen Group. That does quite well in our reliability scores.
Right. But one of those brands or that you just say, maybe I'd lease it. Get it for like 3 years. Once the warranty's up, the lease is up too, you can kind of walk away from it.
So the advice still holds. Hang on a year, let them work out the bugs. That'll do it for this episode. Keep the questions coming. We love them. TalkingCars@iCloud.com. Any information on anything we talked about, see the show notes. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.